It's a defense deal that will be worth $200 million once completed. A South Korean company will be supplying engine transmissions for Turkey's main battle tanks, the Altay, which could run all the way to 2030. SNT Heavy Industries, the manufacturer of the 1,500 horsepower transmissions, is taking over a deal from a German firm that collapsed due to an embargo Berlin imposed on Turkey in 2019. The tank deal is the latest where Ankara has found alternate sources for defense equipment in the face of restrictions enacted by Western countries. Meanwhile, late last month, the Turkish firm SDT Space and Defense Technologies said it was going to supply parts for South Korea's domestically developed fighter jet, which Seoul hopes will be a cheaper option than the F-35s from the US. So how deep do defense ties go between South Korea and Turkey and other countries in the region? And can defense cooperation between middle powers be the first step towards reducing dependence on major arms exporters from the US, Russia, and the EU? And now, for more on this, I'm joined from Seoul by Kwang Ho Chun. He is a Korean professor at Jeonbuk University, and Bilgehan Ozturk. He is a researcher at the SETA Foundation in Ankara, a defense and policy think tank. Gentlemen, welcome to Straight Talk. It's good to have you on the program. So, Bilgehan, what's the significance of this $200 million defense deal signed between Turkey and South Korea? I mean, how important it is for Turkey now to be able to make its own domestic main battle tank, the Altay?
Obviously, it's very important because there is a yearning in Turkey for years to be able to make its own main battle tank, create its own indigenous defense assets, not only its main battle tank. And for years, Turkey did not have the capacity to power its own main battle tank. And it tried to procure it from other sources in the past years. There has always been a problem in the procurement process of this, and lastly, we experienced the problem with Germany, which was the potential supporter or the provider of the power group of this main battle tank. So it's really significant that Turkey now is capable of powering its own main battle tank, thanks to its agreement or deal with South Korea, because South Korea has this capacity to provide this highly needed system or the component of this tank.
Okay. So, Kwang Ho, what are the shared interests of both countries in expanding their defense cooperation, and why is South Korea interested in a defense cooperation with Turkey?
Okay. First of all, I would like to say that South Korean defense industry is expanding largely in these days. As you can see, as we discussed about $200 million deal, which is the power pack of Altay tank, it is not only something about the money situation, but South Korean defense industry is transferring the technology to other country. And this is one of the first step that we can cooperate each other, not only the price-wise, but now technology transfer is one of our best interests in defense industry market in the world.
So we can say that one significant part of defense ties between the two countries is democratizing the restrictions, right, on technology transfers. So, Bilgehan, South Korea also recently signed several defense deals with the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia. How significant were those deals, you think? And what impact will more arms suppliers stepping in have on the Middle East, you think?
Well, they are significant. There is no question about that. In terms of the scale and volume of those deals, with especially Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, I would say Turkey's deal with South Korea has been dwarfed by those gigantic deals with Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates. And I believe this is a part of a greater shift or greater trend in the Middle East, and especially Middle Eastern actors' relations with the United States, especially because the United States has been the traditional supplier of these systems, defense systems, and at the same time the security for all these Middle Eastern powers, including Turkey, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and more. And on the one hand, there is need of these countries, Turkey, UAE, and Saudi Arabia, to increasingly diversify their defense relations other than the United States for so many reasons, because they have political frictions with the United States time to time, and for years, especially recent years, the United States has been proved to be a non-reliable partner for these Middle Eastern actors. So I think now that they are able to procure their defense needs from South Korea is a very good news for these countries, and they will stick to these new trends, and they will enjoy as much as they can this new trend.
So, Kwang Ho, if I'm not mistaken, up to now, most of Korea's overseas sales have been coordinated with Pentagon. Is this going to change? And are some U.S. lawmakers opposed to South Korea's military industry from making significant inroads into the lucrative Middle Eastern markets?
I think partially still South Korean defense industry is controlling by Pentagon, but it is slightly changing. It started changing now, and I'm sure in the future that South Korean technology will spread over to the world, not only in Middle East, but mostly to Eastern European countries and other regions as well. So there are some changes already ongoing right now.
So, Bilgehan, Turkey, on the other hand, will also provide South Korea's fifth generation fighter jet, KF-21, with an in-arm simulation. Is this a big step forward, and how important it is for Turkey to provide subsystems for a country like the South Korea, which develops technology?
It's very important in many respects. Not every country has all the needed capabilities to build their own defense systems that they need. And the fifth generation fighter jet is an example. The one of South Korea is an example. Turkey does not have this capacity on its own, for example, to build its own fifth generation fighter jet. It is doing this in partnership with other actors that are capable of providing this. And in a similar fashion, South Korea is also outsourcing some of the needs when they face in their building effort of their fifth generation fighter jet. So some systems are produced in Turkey as defense industry. Some defense industry companies are capable of providing these. So it's always good to cooperate and pool the resources when it comes to reaching a very coveted outcome. And this is especially the case when the partners have cordial relations. And I believe the cordial relations for decades between Turkey and South Korea is a very strong pillar of this desire of both sides to cooperate in this fashion.
So, Kwang Ho, could these fighter jets replace both countries' aging fleets? I mean, when do you think both countries could become self-sufficient when it comes to their air defenses?
Well, KF-21 is already running. I mean, it's only testing period. Mm-hmm. But in between 5 years, I think KF-21 will be sufficient enough to be deployed actually on the field. And I'm sure that this kind of cooperation with Turkey is very important. And we have very high respect of Turkey's UAV technology. So, it's a both win-win case. And, if I go back to technology transfer, I think in between 5 to 10 years, if Turkey and South Korea could deepen our defense industries, I think there are many things will happen in near future.
So, Bilgehan, are we seeing a new trend in defense industries as well as the defense sector? I mean, what kind of alternatives do these middle powers like Turkey offer? I mean, have they become game changers lately?
To some extent, yes, I believe so. Because as I said in the earlier comments, middle powers now have a greater opportunity to elevate their status in the world stage, and this is also coupled with sporadic conflict with the greater powers such as United States. So when it comes to South Korea, when it comes to Turkey, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and all U.S. allies and middle powers, they time to time experience problems with the United States, and even if the administrations are in favor of cooperating when it comes to defense industry, we see that U.S. Congress U.S. Congress tends to be a block in front of these deals. So these middle powers do not want to experience these kinds of problems with the United States, and they want to rely on more reliable sources and reliable partners who can at the same time provide these assets that are needed by themselves. And at the same time, there is a greater, let's say, negligence of the United States towards the Middle East. For example, I think the case is different in Asia, but especially for the middle powers in the Middle East, they suffer from a less attention by the United States and less interest in the region. So they feel like they have to take the matters into their hands and they have to cooperate more. And I believe these cooperations and greater engagement with South Korea is part of that trend too.
So. Kwang Ho, would you agree? Because in a period when most of the Gulf and Arab states are realigning themselves and trying to find some common ground for the region's troubles, why do you think they're boosting their defenses? And is it likely to spark arms race further in the region?
Well, I do not think it's a beginning of arms race, but it's a kind of defense industry matters in world politics. Well, as our colleague just mentioned, I totally agree with him that middle powers position is very important. In South Korean position, for instance, South Korean government made a big arms trade deal with Poland lately, and the significance of arms trade with Poland by South Korea was that South Korean military industry is always ready. What I mean is that we can deploy our artilleries and tanks in just in time, which means in very short period of time, because South Korea is a divided country,
yes,
and we are still threatened by North Korea. So readiness is another thing. But I don't think the Middle East is in this situation. Like in the 60s, 70s, where the Middle East was a very dangerous situation. But I do not think that this is gonna be a starting of the arms race, but it's a kind of new trends
yes,
of the in the defense industry in the world. Yeah.
All right, gentlemen. Unfortunately, we'll have to leave it here. Thank you very much for joining me on Straight Talk.